Hello and welcome. Today we're journeying into one of the darkest corridors of human history, exploring the chilling evolution of the serial killer. From ancient tales to modern forensics, the story of the serial killer is also the story of us. Our journey begins long before the term serial killer was ever coined. In ancient Rome, tales circulated of figures like Locusta of Gaul, a poisoner said to have been hired by nobles, including Empress Agrippina, to dispatch her rivals. In 15th century France, we have the infamous Gilles de Rais, a nobleman and companion in arms to Joan of Arc. After his military career, he retreated to his estate and was later accused of unspeakable crimes against hundreds of children. While historical accounts can be murky and often colored by the politics of the time, these early cases show that patterns of repeated horrific acts have long been a part of human history, often shrouded in legend and fear. As we move into the Renaissance and the early modern period, figures like the Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory emerge. Accused of torturing and murdering hundreds of young women in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, her story has become a blend of fact and folklore. Whether she was a sadistic killer or a victim of political conspiracy, her legend solidified the archetype of the aristocratic predator, hiding monstrous deeds behind a veil of power and privilege. These early figures were often seen through a supernatural or moralistic lens, as demons, monsters, or extreme sinners, rather than through a psychological one. The 19th century marks a critical turning point. The Industrial Revolution brought massive urbanization. For the first time, vast anonymous cities like London, Paris, and New York became breeding grounds for a new kind of predator. People were disconnected from the tight-knit communities of rural life, making it easier for individuals to disappear without a trace and for their predators to move unseen through the crowds. This is the era that gave us perhaps the most legendary serial killer of all, Jack the Ripper. In 1888, the Whitechapel murders terrified London and fascinated the world. The crimes were sensationalized by the burgeoning newspaper industry, which spread panic and speculation far and wide. Jack the Ripper was never caught, but his legacy was immense. He introduced the world to the idea of a killer who hunted strangers for no apparent motive, creating a template for the modern serial killer narrative. The police investigation, though ultimately a failure, laid some of the earliest groundwork for criminal profiling and methodical investigation techniques. The term serial killer itself wouldn't be popularized until the 20th century, largely by FBI agent Robert Ressler in the 1970s. But the phenomenon was well underway. The early 20th century saw cases like H.H. Holmes in Chicago, who built a so-called murder castle during the 1893 World's Fair, a labyrinth designed to trap and kill his victims. In Germany, Peter Kürten, the vampire of Dusseldorf, terrorized the city in the 1920s. His case was significant because it was one of the first to be subjected to in-depth psychological analysis, with experts trying to understand the why behind his horrific actions, moving beyond simple moral condemnation. This marked a shift towards a more scientific and psychological understanding of such criminals. The mid to late 20th century is often called the golden age of serial killers, not because the acts were admirable, but because of their prevalence and the intense media attention they received. The rise of television and 24-hour news cycles meant that killers like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and Jeffrey Dahmer became household names. They were no longer distant, shadowy figures from a foggy London alley. They were the man next door, the charming volunteer, the quiet neighbor. This era shattered the illusion of safety and forced society to confront the reality that monsters could look just like us. This period also saw a revolution in law enforcement's response. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, established in the 1970s, began systematically studying captured serial killers. Agents like John Douglas and Robert Ressler conducted groundbreaking interviews, developing the practice of criminal profiling. They categorized killers as organized or disorganized, trying to predict their behaviors, habits, and characteristics based on evidence left at crime scenes. This new psychological toolkit gave investigators a powerful new weapon in what had often seemed like a hopeless fight. Simultaneously, forensic science was making incredible leaps. Fingerprinting had been in use for decades, but new techniques involving blood analysis, fiber evidence, and eventually DNA fingerprinting changed everything. The Golden State Killer, who terrorized California from the 1970s to the 1980s, was finally identified and caught in 2018 through genetic genealogy, a technique that was science fiction during his reign of terror. This highlights a crucial trend. As killers have evolved, so too have the methods to catch them. So, where are we today? In the 21st century, the landscape has shifted again. While some criminologists argue that the number of serial killers has declined since its peak in the latter half of the 20th century, the nature of the threat has changed. The internet and digital technology have created new opportunities for predators and new challenges for law enforcement. Online forums can become echo chambers for dark fantasies, and digital footprints can be just as crucial as physical ones in an investigation. The media's role has also transformed. True crime podcasts, documentaries, and online communities have created an insatiable public appetite for these stories. This raises important ethical questions about how we consume this content. Are we honoring the victims and learning from the past, or are we inadvertently glorifying the perpetrators? The history of the serial killer is a dark mirror reflecting our societal changes, fears, and advancements. From supernatural monsters in folklore to the subjects of intense psychological and forensic scrutiny, our understanding has deepened immensely. We've moved from seeing them as unknowable evils to understanding them as deeply damaged individuals whose actions are a complex, terrifying mix of psychology, biology, and opportunity. While the fascination with these figures will likely never fade, the real story is one of progress, the relentless effort of investigators, scientists, and a society striving to understand the darkness in order to protect the light. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more historical explorations. Stay safe and see you next time.